I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I used to believe that love was strong enough to weather any storm, especially the kind of love my wife, Jenna, and I had built over the years. We had met in college, both starry-eyed and ambitious. I was studying finance and she was in marketing. Our chemistry was undeniable and we quickly fell for each other. Fast forward a few years and we were married, living in a cozy house in a nice neighborhood with our dog, Max. Life seemed perfect on the surface, but as I soon found out, things were not as they seemed. Lately, I had noticed a few changes in Jenna's behavior. She was often late coming home from work, claiming to have meetings or events that ran longer than expected. At first, I was understanding. After all, she had just been promoted to a managerial position, and I knew how demanding those roles could be. But there was something about her that felt off, a tension I couldn't shake. Little things, like the way she would avoid eye contact, or the fact that she had started to spend more time on her phone, raised my suspicions. I brushed it off initially, telling myself I was being paranoid. But deep down, I sensed there was more to the story. The turning point came one Friday evening. I had planned a nice dinner for us to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. I wanted to surprise her, so I left work early to pick up her favorite bottle of wine and some fancy takeout from that restaurant we loved. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Jenna's car parked in the garage, which was a good sign. But when I entered the house, it was eerily quiet. I called out to her, but there was no response. I checked the kitchen, living room, and even the backyard. Still nothing. Panic began to set in, and that's when I noticed her phone lying on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, contemplating whether I should check her messages, a decision that felt like crossing a line, but desperation drove me. As I scrolled through her texts, my heart sank. There were messages from a number I didn't recognize, filled with flirtatious banter and explicit details. My stomach twisted as I read through each exchange, realizing I was looking at evidence of an affair. I felt a mix of disbelief and betrayal surge through me. How could she do this to us? I found her a half hour later at a bar downtown, sitting in a dimly lit corner with a man I had never seen before. They were laughing, her hand playfully touching his arm. I felt my heart drop as I realized the truth. She was cheating on me. I stood frozen for a moment, watching them from a distance, unable to comprehend the reality of what I was witnessing. The warm, loving wife I knew seemed like a stranger in that moment. My mind raced with anger and confusion. I had to confront her, to hear her explain herself, but the thought of it terrified me. As I stepped into the bar, my anger built with each step. I approached the table, my hands trembling. Jenna looked up, surprise washing over her face, quickly replaced by a cold facade. The man, oblivious to the storm brewing, just smiled at me. "Hey man, you're just in time," he said, gesturing for me to sit down. But I wasn't here to join their little party. I wanted the truth. "Jenna," I said, my voice steady yet laced with pain, "can we talk?" Her eyes widened slightly, and I could see the panic behind them. She excused herself from the table, and we stepped outside into the cool night air. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us, the silence punctuated only by the distant sounds of the bar behind us. "Is there something you want to tell me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She stammered, her usual confidence slipping away. "I can explain," she said, and just like that the floodgates opened. She launched into a series of excuses, claiming it was just a fling, that she was feeling lost and neglected. The lies tumbled from her lips like a poorly rehearsed script, each word twisting the knife in my heart deeper. I wanted to yell, to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was listen to her rationalizations. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. I felt anger creeping in, but it was quickly overshadowed by a profound sadness. The woman I had loved and trusted completely was standing before me, shattering the image of our life together. I felt betrayed, used, and more alone than I had ever felt. I could see the remorse in her eyes, but it was too late. The damage was done. What was I supposed to do now? I had to think clearly, but my heart was a tangled mess. The decision of how to proceed weighed heavily on my mind, and I knew I would have to confront the reality of our shattered marriage head-on. So there I was, standing outside that bar, questioning everything I thought I knew about love and trust. Did I even know this woman anymore? I needed to figure out how to move forward from this heartbreak to reclaim my life. After that fateful night, I found myself walking around in a haze, replaying the confrontation over and over in my head. Jenna had apologized profusely, but her words felt hollow. I was still grappling with the betrayal, the nagging doubt about everything we had built together. I thought I knew her, but who was she really? The woman who had shared so many dreams with me, or the woman who had betrayed my trust so casually? The following days were a blur. I went to work, but I couldn't focus. I felt like I was moving through life with a heavy fog surrounding me. Conversations with my coworkers were superficial, and I felt alienated from everyone around me. I didn't want to share what was happening. I wasn't ready to open up about my shattered marriage to anyone. The thought of judgment or pity made me uneasy. I kept my pain bottled up, simmering beneath the surface. Jenna and I had an awkward dynamic at home. She was trying to be apologetic, promising she would make things right, and yet every time she reached for my hand or tried to initiate a conversation, all I could think of was the image of her laughing with that man. It was a potent reminder of her infidelity. I felt like I was living with a stranger. One day after work, as I absent-mindedly scrolled through social media to distract myself, I stumbled across a post from a mutual friend. A group picture from a recent gathering, and there was Jenna smiling radiantly with that same guy, his arm slung casually around her shoulder. The image hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she be so carefree around him while I was living in this emotional hell? Fueled by a mix of anger and betrayal, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I needed a plan, some way to regain control of my life. I started mapping out my revenge. I didn't want to stoop to her level, but a part of me wanted her to understand the pain she had caused. I thought about how I could expose her to the people who had once admired our relationship. Perhaps I could find a way to make her feel the same way I did, lost and empty. Over the next few days, I began to gather information. I wanted to learn more about this man, this interloper who had wormed his way into my life. I discovered his name was Derek, and he worked at a company that often collaborated with Jenna's firm. It all made sense. They had met in a work context, and it was easy to see how the lines blurred. I scoured the internet, social media, and even asked around casually among mutual friends, trying to piece together the connection between them. I also started to notice Jenna's excuses more closely. She would say she was going to the gym, but I knew her workout schedule. I pulled out my phone and set reminders to check up on her during those times. I even followed her a couple of times, just to see where she was going when she claimed to be busy. Every time, my heart raced as I approached the gym or the cafe she frequented, expecting to find her with Derek. Thankfully, she seemed to be sticking to her word during those times, and my paranoia began to settle slightly. But I was still determined to make her feel my pain. I started crafting a plan to have my revenge, something subtle yet impactful. I decided I would gradually reveal everything I knew to her friends and family, planting seeds of doubt and confusion in her mind while exposing her duplicity. I didn't want to confront her directly again just yet. I wanted to let her feel the repercussions of her choices first. As I laid out my plan, I felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. Would my revenge truly help me find closure, or would it just prolong the hurt? I couldn't shake the feeling that getting back at her might only deepen the wounds. But I was also angry at her for betraying the vows we took, for laughing and smiling with someone else while I was left struggling with my emotions. The night I decided to start executing my plan, I reached out to a close friend, Mark, who knew Jenna and me well. We met up at our usual bar, a place filled with memories, and I finally let it all out. I told him everything, the affair, the confrontation, how I planned to expose Jenna. Mark listened intently, nodding as I spoke, though there was a flicker of concern in his eyes as I detailed my intentions. "Man, are you sure this is the right way to approach things?" he asked after I finished. "I get that you're hurt, but maybe taking the high road is the better option here." I shook my head. "I can't just let her get away with this, Mark. I want her to know how it feels to lose someone she loves, to feel the heartbreak I've been going through. Mark sighed. I get it. You have every right to be angry, but revenge doesn't always bring the peace you're hoping for. Think about it. His words lingered in my mind long after we parted ways. I knew he was right on some level, but the anger I felt was blinding. I wanted Jenna to realize what she had thrown away. I was tired of feeling powerless in this situation. As the days passed, my plan began to take shape. I reached out to some of her friends, inviting them out for casual drinks without mentioning Jenna. I wanted to gauge their thoughts on our relationship and see how they viewed her actions. I could tell they had no idea about the affair, which only fueled my determination. I was treading murky waters, but I couldn't help but feel a perverse sense of satisfaction. The thought that soon Jenna's friends might question her about Derek filled me with a twisted sense of joy. Perhaps then she would realize the gravity of her mistakes and the hurt she caused me. But deep down, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was about to step into a world of pain that I might not be prepared for. Was I really ready to bring everyone else into our mess? As I set my plan into motion, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. I began by casually inviting some of Jenna's friends out for drinks. I arranged a small gathering at a local pub, telling them it was just to unwind and catch up. I specifically chose friends who were close to Jenna, hoping they could provide insight into her mindset and possibly reveal more about her relationship with Derek. The night of the gathering, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I arrived early to secure a table and ordered a couple of beers to calm my nerves. I kept replaying the conversations I planned to have in my mind, trying to anticipate their reactions once I revealed what I knew. Would they believe me? Would they confront her? I had no idea how this would actually unfold, but I knew I had to start somewhere. As the evening progressed, Jenna's friends arrived one by one, their faces lighting up as they saw me. There was Sarah, her college roommate who had always been like a sister to her, and Jamie, her coworker, who had spoken highly of Jenna's new role at work. They were excited to see me, and for a moment I almost forgot the turmoil in my heart. We reminisced about old times, shared laughs, and the atmosphere felt light. But as the drinks flowed, I could feel my resolve hardening. I waited for the perfect moment when the laughter faded and the mood shifted slightly. "Hey guys, can I ask you something?" I said, my heart racing. They turned to me, their expressions shifting from friendly curiosity to concern as they sensed the seriousness of the moment. "Sure, what's up?" Sarah replied, tilting her head slightly. "Have you noticed any changes in Jenna lately?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my voice trembled slightly. "I've been feeling like something's off between us." Their expressions changed, concern etched on their faces. "What do you mean?" Jamie asked, furrowing her brow. I hesitated, weighing my words carefully. "I think she might be seeing someone else." The words fell heavy in the air, and a tense silence enveloped the table. I could see the gears turning in their minds as they processed what I had just said. "Are you serious?" Sarah finally broke the silence. "What makes you think that?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I've seen messages on her phone. She's been acting distant, spending more time at work, and I caught her out with a guy named Derek." I watched their reactions closely, searching for signs of disbelief or shock. "Derek," Jamie echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've heard that name before. I think they worked together on a project." "That's what I thought," I continued, fueled by their surprise. "I confronted her about it and she tried to downplay everything, but I don't believe her. I can't shake the feeling that she's lying to me." The conversation spiraled into a flurry of questions and speculations as they processed the information. They were shocked, but a part of me felt vindicated, like I was finally airing the truth. As the night progressed, they began sharing their thoughts on Jenna's behavior, confirming my suspicions. Sarah mentioned how Jenna had seemed preoccupied during their last outing, more focused on her phone than their conversation. Jamie reminisced about how Jenna had brushed off questions about her relationship when asked. "This isn't like her at all," Sarah said, her brow furrowing deeper. "We need to talk to her. She deserves to know that you're hurt and that we're worried about her." I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. Was I doing the right thing? But the anger bubbled beneath the surface. I couldn't allow Jenna to continue living in a bubble of lies. She needed to face the consequences of her actions. As the night wore on, I could see the wheels turning in their minds. They were starting to understand the reality of my situation. It was empowering to have their support, but I also knew that once the truth came out, there would be no going back. When I finally returned home that night, I felt both exhilarated and drained. Jenna wasn't home, which didn't surprise me. I was pretty sure she was with Derek. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to prepare for the fallout that was about to come. The next day I received a call from Sarah, who informed me that they had a plan to confront Jenna. My heart raced. Would she deny everything? Would she lash out? I could only imagine her reaction when she learned that I had spilled the beans to her friends. The next few days turned into a blur of anxiety. Jenna continued to act as if everything was normal, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Each time I saw her, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. She had no idea that the web of lies she had spun was unraveling around her. I braced myself for the confrontation that was bound to happen. Then one evening while I was watching TV, the door opened and Jenna walked in. Her face lit up with a smile, but I could see the tension in her eyes. Something was off. "Hey babe, how was your day?" she asked, trying to sound cheerful. "Uneventful," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "How was yours?" She shrugged, glancing at me nervously. "Just the usual, busy at work." I could see her fidgeting, her fingers twisting in her hair, a sign of her anxiety. "Did you meet up with Derek today?" I asked casually, trying to gauge her reaction. Her smile faltered for a second, then returned. "No, not today, just some meetings with the team." I felt a rush of anger surge within me. "You know, Sarah and Jamie are worried about you. They mentioned you've been acting strange lately." Her eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice rising slightly. "Just that they noticed you've been distracted," I replied, watching her face closely. "Maybe even finding a little too much comfort in a coworker." She raised her chin defiantly, her previous facade of calm shattered. "You seriously trying to turn my friends against me? This is ridiculous." The conversation escalated quickly and I could feel the tension crackling in the air between us. "I'm not trying to turn anyone against you, Jenna. I just want the truth." "Fine," she exploded, her voice echoing through the room. "What do you want me to say?" I stood my ground, desperate for her to confront her reality. "I want you to come clean about what's really going on." Just then, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Sarah and the message read, "We're here, ready when you are." My heart raced. The moment I been both dreading and anticipating was finally here. I glanced at Jenna, whose expression shifted from anger to confusion as she registered the change in my demeanor. "I'm not going to let you lie to me anymore," I said, my voice steady. "We're going to have a conversation about this with your friends." The look of disbelief on her face was almost comical. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she tried to piece together what was happening. "Wait, what?" she stammered, her bravado dissipating. "You invited them here. Just outside. They're here to talk," I replied, feeling a rush of determination. In that moment I realized I was finally taking back my power. No longer would I be the man cowering in the shadows of her deceit. I was ready for the truth to come out, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The air between Jenna and me crackled with tension as I gestured towards the door. I could see her mind racing, her emotions shifting sharply from anger to confusion. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words caught in her throat as a knock echoed through the hallway. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had reached a point of no return. "Jenna," I said, my voice steady, "we need to do this. I'm done pretending everything is fine." I made my way to the door, my heart racing as I turned the handle and pulled it open. There stood Sarah and Jamie, their faces a mix of concern and determination. "Hey," Sarah said softly, stepping inside. Jamie followed close behind her, scanning the room as if she could sense the intensity of the moment. I nodded at them, grateful for their support. "Jenna, this is Sarah and Jamie," I said, gesturing to my wife as they stepped further into the living room. Jenna's eyes darted between me and the two women, a flicker of panic washing over her features. What's going on?" Jenna asked, her voice tremulous. I could see her trying to regain some semblance of control, but the reality was starting to sink in. "Jenna, we need to talk." Sarah said gently but firmly. We're worried about you and we feel like you haven't been honest with us or with your husband. Worried about what? Jenna shot back, her defenses already rising. I don't need a confrontation right now. If you think I'm cheating on him, you're wrong. Are you? Jamie asked, her voice cutting through the tension. Because we've all noticed you've been distant lately, and we care about you, Jenna, but you need to be honest. The tension in the room was palpable. Jenna's expression shifted from defiance to anguish. She was cornered, and I watched as she struggled to maintain her composure. This is ridiculous, she said, crossing her arms. You're all ganging up on me. Jenna, we're here because we love you, Sarah pressed. But we're also here because we care about Jason. You two need to be honest with each other. With that, I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my heart pounding. Jenna, it's true. I found messages from Derek. I confronted you about it, and instead of being honest, you gave me excuses. Her face turned pale as she realized the extent of my knowledge. You went through my phone, she stammered, her voice shaky. Is that what this is about? She said, her tone shifting to one of indignation. You're invading my privacy. Trust me, Jason, you don't want to go down that road. Jenna, we're past that. I was resolute, my patience wearing thin. You need to own up to what you've done. We can't move forward until you do. Tears welled in her eyes, and I could see the conflict battling within her. It's not what you think, she whispered, her voice trembling. Derek and I— Stop, I interrupted, shaking my head. Just tell me the truth. I can handle it. Jenna hesitated for a moment, her gaze darting between me and her friends. I could see the gears turning in her mind, weighing the consequences of her next words. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. Fine, it's true, I've been seeing Derek. A heavy silence fell over the room. I felt my heart drop, a mix of anger and sorrow coursing through me. I stood there, searching her face for any sign of remorse, but all I saw was fear. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do this? I felt so overwhelmed, she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. With work and everything, I got caught up in something I didn't know how to handle. Derek was there, and I didn't think it would go this far. Did you even think about how I would feel? I shot back, my heart racing. You lied to me about where you were, about who you were with. You made me feel crazy for questioning you. I know, she cried, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't affect us. I was wrong. Was it worth it? I asked, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. Was a fling with Derek worth losing everything we had? She looked down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. It was. I made a terrible mistake. I don't want to lose you, Jason. The silence that followed was heavy, each of us grappling with our emotions. I could feel Sarah and Jamie standing behind me, their presence supportive yet filled with tension. I needed time to process what I was hearing, to come to grips with this revelation and what it meant for our future. Jenna, I don't know if I can just forgive you, I said finally, my voice trembling. This isn't something you can take back. Trust is gone. I don't even know how to move forward from this. I'll do anything to make it right, she pleaded, desperation in her eyes. I love you and I want to fix this. I'll end things with Derek. I'll go to therapy if you want. Please, just give me a chance to prove it. I wanted to believe her desperately, but the betrayal cut so deep and I could still feel the wound raw and exposed. I turned to Sarah and Jamie, seeking their support amidst the chaos of my emotions. They exchanged glances, their expressions filled with compassion and understanding. Jason, you have the right to take the time you need, Sarah said gently. This is your decision. Just remember, you're not alone in this. Yeah, Jamie added, nodding. Whatever you decide, we're here for you, both of you. Just take your time. I nodded, grateful for their support, but my heart was still heavy. I looked back at Jenna, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of vulnerability in her eyes. It was a stark contrast to the confident woman I had once known. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said, my voice wavering. But I need time to think about everything. I can't just jump back into this without processing the hurt you caused. Take all the time you need, Jenna replied, her voice a mixture of sorrow and hope. I'll wait for you no matter how long it takes. I want to fix this. I'm so sorry. With that, I took a step back, needing space to breathe. The confrontation had opened a floodgate of emotions, and I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a flicker of hope. It was a complicated web we were tangled in, and I knew it would take time to unravel it. As the tension began to ease, I realized that the road ahead would be rocky. I didn't know if we could find our way back to each other, but I was ready to explore the options. "Let's take this one step at a time," I said to Jenna, my voice firm yet weary. "We'll figure it out together, but it's going to take work." "Okay," she whispered, wiping away her tears. "I'll do whatever it takes." As I looked around at the three of us in that living room, my wife, my friends, and me, I realized that this was just the beginning of a long journey. We had a lot of healing to do, and the decisions we made in the days to come would be crucial. In the days that followed, the air in our home was thick with uncertainty. Jenna was trying hard to prove her sincerity, but every time I caught a glimpse of her, an unsettling mixture of anger and sadness washed over me. I could see her making an effort. She was going to therapy, sharing her feelings, and even made a point of being more open with her phone. But still, the shadows of betrayal loomed large over us. I found myself oscillating between wanting to forgive her and feeling like I was betraying myself if I did. It was a constant battle in my mind. I had to remind myself that I wasn't the one who had broken the trust. I wasn't the one who had thrown our marriage into turmoil. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find Jenna sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. She had prepared dinner spaghetti, my favorite. The smell wafted through the air, but it felt hollow to me. "Hey, I made your favorite," she said, attempting a cheerful tone that only added to the tension. "Thanks," I replied, trying to muster a smile, but the truth was I wasn't hungry. I sat down across from her, the distance between us feeling like miles. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I know I have a long way to go to earn your trust back, but I want you to know I'm committed to making it right." I nodded, knowing that she was trying her best, but my heart felt heavy with doubt. "It's just hard for me, Jenna," I finally admitted. "Every time I think we're moving forward, I feel like I'm getting pulled back into that dark place." "I understand," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm so sorry for everything. I can't change the past, but I can change how I act in the future. I want to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." I wanted to believe her, but part of me felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering down into the abyss. "What if you don't change?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What if this is just a temporary fix?" "I won't let it be," she replied, her voice breaking. "I've realized how much I've jeopardized, and I don't want to lose you. I promise to work on our issues together." As I sat across from her, I felt that flicker of hope igniting within me, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memory of her betrayal. "I need to think about what's best for me too," I said firmly. "This isn't just about you and your feelings. I need to heal." "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll do anything. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want the chance to prove that I can be better." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. "Maybe we should consider couples therapy together," I suggested cautiously. "I think we need a neutral space to navigate these feelings." Jenna nodded eagerly, relief washing over her features. "Yes, I'd love that. Whatever it takes to rebuild this connection, I'm on board." It felt like a small step in the right direction, but I still had to wrestle with the uncertainty. I needed to protect my heart, but I also didn't want to close the door on our marriage just yet. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that healing wouldn't come easy for either of us. We attended therapy sessions together, and while they were emotionally exhausting, they also helped us peel back the layers of our issues. It became evident that Jenna's actions stemmed from a combination of her own insecurities and the pressures she felt at work. During one session, she broke down and admitted she had always struggled with feeling enough, both in her career and within our relationship. "I felt like I was losing myself," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. And when Derek started showing me attention, it felt like a validation I needed at that moment. Hearing her vulnerability made me soften, even if just a little, but I still wrestled with the broken trust. "I get that, but I want you to know that you can come to me with those feelings," I replied. "We can work through anything if we're honest with each other." Through therapy, we began to explore the deeper issues that had led to her infidelity. Jenna confessed that she had often felt that her ambitions were stifled, and I revealed how I had sometimes prioritized work over our relationship. It was as if we were unveiling layers of ourselves that had been hidden, and each session brought us a little closer to understanding each other. However, there were still nights when I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning as images of her with Derek flooded my mind. I would wake up feeling the weight of the betrayal pressing down on my chest, and it would take all my strength to push through the day. The uncertainty of whether our marriage could truly be salvaged hung over me like a storm cloud. One night after a particularly emotional therapy session, we returned home. Jenna was quiet, and I could sense that she was struggling with her feelings too. "I know this is hard for you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I'm committed to this. I want to make it work." I turned to her, searching for the sincerity in her eyes. "Jenna, I want that too," I admitted. "But we have to keep talking about it. We can't just brush things under the rug." "Of course," she replied, her eyes glistening with determination. "I'll do anything to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." We sat together on the couch, talking openly about our fears and hopes for the future. It was a conversation that had been a long time coming, and it felt like the first real step toward rebuilding what had been lost. As the weeks passed, I began to feel a shift. There were moments of genuine laughter and connection, and I could see Jenna putting in the effort. She surprised me with little gestures, a handwritten note, cooking dinner, or simply listening when I needed to vent. Each small act began to chip away at the wall I had built around my heart, but despite the improvements, there were still triggers that would send me spiraling back into doubt. Even the slightest mention of Derek would ignite my insecurities. During one of our therapy sessions, I expressed how I still felt uneasy about Jenna's connection to him. "I know it's hard to let go of those feelings," the therapist said, looking between us. "But healing takes time. It's important to understand that trust is built through consistent actions. Jenna needs to continue showing you that she is committed to this relationship." As I left that session, I realized that while we were making progress, the road to rebuilding trust was a long one. I had to make a conscious effort to let go of the anger and focus on the present. Still, there were nights when the fear of losing her would creep in. I wondered if I could ever fully forgive her, or if I would always carry the scars of this betrayal. But something deep inside told me that it was worth fighting for, that love was worth the struggle if we could come out on the other side stronger. Eventually, I made the decision to focus on the possibilities rather than the past. I wanted to give our marriage a fighting chance, and I realized that part of that meant letting go of the anger. It wasn't easy, but I was learning to separate Jenna's mistakes from the person she was now trying to become. It was a gradual process, and I still had a long way to go, but I was willing to invest in our journey together. After all, love isn't perfect. It's messy and complicated, but when handled with care, it can lead to healing and growth. As time passed, the weight of the betrayal began to lift, if only slightly. Jenna and I continued to attend therapy, and while it wasn't a magic fix, it offered us a space to openly discuss our feelings and fears. Each session felt like peeling back layers of an onion, and although it was painful at times, I could see glimmers of hope emerging. Jenna was committed to change, and I could see her actively trying to rebuild the trust we had lost. One of the most impactful moments came during one of our sessions when she said something that resonated deeply with me. "I realize now that I need to be accountable for my actions. I can't keep avoiding my feelings and thinking they'll just go away. I have to actively work on this." Her determination struck a chord within me. I began to understand that rebuilding our marriage would require effort from both of us, not just her. I started to open up about my own shortcomings, about times when I had prioritized work over our relationship, and it felt liberating to share my vulnerabilities. There were good days and bad days, but with each passing week, the bad days became less frequent. We began to reconnect in ways I hadn't expected. I found myself laughing at her jokes again, and we started going on little dates, dinner, movie nights, just spending quality time together. We even started to revisit the things we loved doing as a couple, like hiking and cooking together. One particular evening, as we were preparing dinner, Jenna suggested we make homemade pizza together. We laughed and joked, tossing flour at each other, and for a moment it felt like everything was back to normal. As we kneaded the dough, I caught her looking at me with a mixture of love and determination. "I'm so grateful we're doing this," she said softly. "It means the world to me." I knew that we still had a long road ahead. Trust was something that couldn't be instantly regained. It took time and consistent effort. Yet, as we talked and laughed, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe we could find our way back to each other, but it would take both of us being honest and committed to the process. One day, during a therapy session, we discussed how we could actively rebuild trust. The therapist suggested creating a trust-building plan where we could set small, achievable goals to help us both feel secure in the relationship again. It was a practical approach that resonated with me. We crafted our list together, focusing on communication, transparency, and emotional support. As we shared our goals, it became clear that we both wanted the same thing: to rebuild our connection and create a stronger foundation for our marriage. We agreed to check in with each other regularly about our feelings, to be transparent about our schedules, and to create a safe space for difficult conversations. Jenna also took initiative by reestablishing her boundaries with Derek. She blocked him on social media and made it clear to her coworkers that her focus was on her marriage. I could sense the change in her demeanor. She was taking responsibility for her actions and actively working to prove her commitment to me. Despite all the progress, I still had moments of insecurity. There were times when I felt a pang of jealousy if I heard her mention a work event, but I reminded myself of the strides we had made. I began to recognize that feelings of insecurity didn't define our relationship. What mattered was how we chose to navigate those feelings together. As months went by, I felt a gradual shift. I started to trust Jenna again, slowly but surely. There were still moments of doubt, but I learned to communicate them rather than letting them fester inside. Our conversations became more open and honest, and in many ways, I felt like we were rebuilding our relationship from the ground up. The day came when Jenna and I celebrated our anniversary again, this time with a renewed sense of commitment. We went back to that same restaurant where we had our first anniversary, but this time it felt different. There was no tension, no unresolved anger hanging in the air. Instead, we were filled with a sense of hope and the promise of a fresh start. Over dinner, we reflected on the journey we had been on. Jenna shared how much she had grown through the experience, and I talked about how I had learned the importance of communication and vulnerability. We both acknowledged that the road had been long and painful, but we were grateful for the lessons it taught us. "Thank you for giving me a chance to prove myself," Jenna said, her eyes glistening with sincerity. "I know I hurt you, but I promise to keep working on myself and on us." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I appreciate that, Jenna. I know it won't be perfect, but I'm willing to keep fighting for us." As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had come so far, and while there would still be challenges ahead, I was ready to face them with Jenna by my side. We had both learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of being honest with one another. In the end, I realized that love is not just about the happy moments. It's about how you navigate the storms together. We were learning to embrace the messiness of our relationship, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. We were not just surviving, we were truly beginning to thrive together again. And that, I realized, was worth fighting for. With that thought, I knew we could face whatever challenges lay ahead together.